Ever since the release of the No Breathes from Hell one-shot chapter, fans have been concerned about the state of the Gotei 13. After everything that the Gotei 13 had survived during the 1000-year Blood War arc, after watching Yamamoto get killed, after seeing Unohana sacrifice herself, and after witnessing Ukitake sacrifice himself during the Kamekake ritual, we were left with an all-new lineup of captains. Now you have to wonder, is the Hell Arc Gotei 13 the weakest iteration that we've ever seen? In this video, I'll deep dive into what makes a Gotei 13 lineup powerful. I'll examine every captain in this new roster and figure out if the Soul Society is genuinely screwed when Hell's Gates crack open and the Hell Arc begins. To understand where the current version of the Gotei 13 is at, we need to look at where everything began, with the original Gotei 13, the bloodthirsty killers who fought alongside Yamamoto over 1,000 years ago. Yobak himself admitted that the current Shinigami during the 1000-year Blood War arc were pathetic compared to that generation. The original Gotei 13 were executioners who nearly wiped the Quincy off of the face of existence. Unohana, the first Kinpachi, was part of that crew, and this should tell you everything that you need to know. Then you had the Gotei 13 lineup from the Soul Society arc. Sure, a few of them were traitors, but look at the raw firepower. You had Isane, Gin, Yamamoto with both arms, Unohana in her prime, Shunsui, Ukitake, and even Kinpachi, who hadn't scratched the surface of his potential at that point. The roster had 3 captains who could arguably solo most threats by themselves. Isane proved that he could block attacks from multiple captain level fighters without breaking a sweat. Yamamoto's mere spiritual pressure could vaporize weaker Shinigami, and this is the kind of dominance that we're comparing the Hell Arc Gotei 13 against. Then moving on to the 1000-year Blood War arc, we still had the strongest version of Yamamoto that we'd ever seen, Unohana serving as the ultimate trump card and enough captain level power to make anyone think twice before attacking. The Quincy didn't just invade because they felt like it, Yobak needed elaborate planning. He had Bankai stealing medallions and the element of surprise because even weakened, the Gotei 13 was still terrifying. When the Quincy invasion occurred, the Gotei 13 got dismantled so thoroughly that by the end, calling them the 13 felt like a joke. Yamamoto, the pillar holding everything together for over a millennium, got cut in half by Yobak. Unohana unlocked Kinpachi's true power and died while doing it, and while Kinpachi became incredibly powerful, losing the Gotei 13's greatest healer and one of its oldest, most skilled fighters in one move was devastating. During the second half of the 1000-year Blood War arc, Ukitake performed the Kamekake ritual, letting Mimihagi consume him in order for him to stabilize the 3 realms. Ukitake, who had served the Gotei 13 for centuries, was gone, and in addition to these losses, we had Sasakibe, who died in the opening assault from the Quincy, Komamura, who threw away his humanity during his battle against Bambietta, and by the end of the story arc, we were left with sizable gaps in the Gotei 13 that needed to be filled. The surviving Shinigami did receive considerable power-ups like Byakuya after his Royal Guard training. His Shikai was so powerful that it was mistaken for his Bankai. Hitsugaya, during his battle against Gerard, had activated his matured Bankai, and this is where we see him in his adult form. There's Kinpachi, who had learned the name of his Zanpakuto, thus granting him access to his Shikai and Bankai, along with the power-ups that Renji and Rukia had received, with Renji unlocking his true Bankai and Rukia finally awakening her Bankai. Now the lineup of the Hell Arc Gotei 13 has 3 captains who have shown us absolutely nothing to justify their positions. Iba might be the worst offender. The man has been in Bleach since the Soul Society arc, and what have we really seen of him? He got his ass kicked by Isane alongside Komamura. We see him sparring with Ikkaku and being treated as roughly equal to a 3rd seated officer. Him following Komamura around like a loyal puppy, but that's it. We don't know his Shikai's name, we don't know its abilities, and we have zero evidence that he's even close to captain level, beside the fact that someone handed him a captain's coat and said good luck with the rest of it. Some fans have wondered, why was it Iba who got the captain role? Where was Hisagi? Or where was literally anyone else who has demonstrated actual feats? Iba getting the captain position feels less like he earned it, and more like he was given the position just because a slot needed to be filled after Komamura was transformed into a wolf. Then there's the decision to make Isane the captain of the 4th division, which some have said said is equally as bad. Isane is following on from Unohana, the first Kinpachi. She was a master healer and someone who'd been a captain for almost 1,000 years. Yes, Isane can heal. She fills that requirement for the captain of Squad 4, but it's difficult to say whether she has any competency in battle like the former captain of Squad 4, Unohana. You have to remember, Isane got bodied by base form Ichigo during the Soul Society arc without even making him break a sweat. Isane's Zanbakuto Iregumo means frozen cloud, which suggests that she may have ice powers, but we've never seen the extent of her abilities beyond releasing 2 extra blade prongs. After 10 years, she should have developed her Zanbakuto more to the point where she has achieved Bankai, as this is a requirement to pass the captain's proficiency exam. Yeah, we haven't seen her Shikai, let alone her Bankai, but I can tell you one thing for certain, she is nowhere near as terrifying as her predecessor, who was one of the members of the original Gotei 13. Now, Lisa caps off this trio of questionable Hell Arc captains. At least she does have some combat history. She fought alongside the Vizards against Aizen, she held her own briefly against a holified Ichigo, and she battled Haribel with Hiyori and Hitsugaya. But saying that she held her own is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. She was a lieutenant over a century ago working under Shunsui, which means that she is experienced, but experience doesn't necessarily equal power. We've never really seen her Bankai, and her Shikai Haguro Tonbo seems to just be a monk's spade that hits hard. What game-changing ability does Lisa possess? The brutal truth is that any of these 3 captains could get deleted by mid-tier Sternritter, and we'd barely be surprised, and that's the level that we're working with here. Even the Hell Arc captains with established track records aren't exactly inspiring confidence. Rose and Kensei both got absolutely humiliated during the 1,000-year Blood War arc. Rose had Mask the Masculine beaten with his Bankai Kinshara Butoden, a genuinely powerful ability that creates illusions so convincing that they become reality. Mask was burning alive, unable to breathe, completely at the mercy of Rose. But then Rose did something unforgivable. He explained exactly how to counter his own Bankai. He straight up told Mask if you can't hear it, then his Bankai doesn't work, and Mask immediately burst his own eardrums and proceeded to blast Rose into next week. Rose literally lost because he couldn't keep his mouth shut for more than 30 seconds. Then there is Kensei. He was completely bodied despite being a captain with holification. Sure, both of them got zombified by Giselle and later restored by Mayuri, and apparently Kensei got a power buff from being a zombie that puts him near Shunsui's level according to Can't For Your Own World, but we never saw that power in action. Then there is Soifon, whose entire 1,000-year Blood War arc showing was disappointing. Her Bankai remains largely useless. It's a missile launcher that's so destructive that she can only fire it once a day, and without assistance is never actually accomplished anything meaningful on its own. Her Shikai Suzume Bachi has a 2-hit kill ability. It's devastating against any opponent who has a similar level of Reiatsu to her own, but against elite level opponents who have considerably more Reiatsu than Soifon, then Suzume Bachi's 2-hit kill will not work on them. Soifon tried to use her Bankai against Gerard and got swatted away like a fly. Her biggest contribution was being fast and occasionally landing a Shunko punch. Now, these 3 captains that I've spoken about aren't necessarily deadweight. They're experienced captains with decades or centuries of combat knowledge, but they're not at that level of power that inspires confidence, especially if the Soul Society is going to go up against the forces of Hell. There is actually a bright spot in the Hell Arc Gotei 13 lineup, and it's Rukia Kuchiki. She was promoted to captain of the 13th Division 10 years following the defeat of Yhwach. It's been 2 years since her appointment as captain, and with a character like this, it really does feel like she's earned a position through all of the character growth that we've witnessed and her actual demonstrated feats of power. During the 1,000-year Blood War arc, Rukia defeated Asnod, a Sternritter who had stolen Byakuya's Bankai and terrorized the Serete. She did it with a Bankai that she'd literally just achieved, one so powerful and dangerous that it drops her body temperature to absolute 0, thus granting her with an instant kill ability. All molecular motion ceases at absolute 0, nothing survives it. The fact that she could use this without killing herself showed that she had the potential to master something genuinely terrifying. rank, and she's had 12 years to train with her Bankai. In that time, surely she's overcome the limitations of it, and she's refined Haka no Tagame and pushed its technique further. If she's mastered her Bankai, she is legitimately a high-tier captain. I wouldn't go as far as to say that she is Shunsui or Kinpachi level, but she is definitely amongst the mid-tier captains. She's got the ice-based Zanpakuto to potentially counter even elite threats if she lands her absolute zero, and she's got the emotional investment for the Hell Arc. As we learn that her predecessor Yushiro Ukitake has been sent to Hell. Rukia is not the problem when it comes to the Hell Arc Gotei 13. She is proof that the right character with proper feats of power deserves a promotion to captain level. The counter argument to the Hell Arc Gotei 13 being the weakest hinges entirely on the powerhouses who remain, and make no mistake, some of these captains are absolute monsters. Kinpachi Zaraki is without exaggeration the strongest pure Shinigami in existence by the end of the Can't Fear Unworld light novels. His sealed state alone surpasses Unohana. His Shikai puts him on a totally different level, and with his Bankai, if he has learned to control it since 12 years after the defeat of Yuhobak, it can be truly catastrophic. During the Can't Fear Unworld light novels, he fought Hikone, a being approaching Soul King levels of power, and he held his own. The original Gotei 13 had Yamamoto, but post Can't Fear Unworld, Kinpachi might actually beat Prime Yamamoto in a straight fight. That's how much he has grown. Then there is Byakuya Kuchiki, who received Royal Guard training during the 1000-year Blood War arc, and he demonstrated his new feats of power against Gerard. His Zenbon Kageyoshi has always been versatile, but post Royal Guard training, his Zanpakuto abilities have improved exponentially. Gerard was literally becoming a god, and Byakuya was keeping pace with him. Then there is Hitsugaya's matured Bankai, which transformed him from a prodigy to a powerhouse. In his adult form, he has complete ice manipulation with no time limit, and the ability to freeze concepts themselves. In this new form, he went toe-to-toe with Gerard alongside Byakuya, proving that he wields the most powerful ice-type Zanpakuto within the Soul Society. Then there is Shunsui's Bankai Katen Kyokotsu Karamatsu Shinju, which is one of the most broken abilities in the series. His reality warping theater forces opponents into deadly games that they cannot escape. He used it to nearly kill Lil Barrow, a Schutzstaffel member whose intangibility made him almost impossible to damage. Shunsui as head captain might not have Yamamoto's raw destructive force, but he's got the hacks abilities to more than make up for it. Then of course there's Mayuri Kurotsuchi. With prep time and knowledge, he can counter almost anything. He's the wild card who turned zombified captains back to normal. He modified his Bankai mid-fight against Pernida, who was constantly evolving and adapting during their fight, and during the Can't Fear Unworld light novels, it stated that Mayuri could potentially fight Hikone level threats with proper preparation. This now brings us to the threat of the Hell Arc. Ukitake's Zanpakuto appeared at the end of the No Beats from Hell one-shot chapter, dragging Xyle Aparo back into Hell. This means that Ukitake is down there, and if Hell's inhabitants are coming back stronger, what's a corrupted Ukitake going to look like? He was already a captain level threat before, and it's evident that being in the atmosphere of Hell causes some physical alterations. Like Xyle Aparo's hollow hole moving to the outside of his body, and the all new abilities that he gains to manipulate the chains of Hell. Alongside Ukitake, you can expect to see Hell corrupted versions of Yamamoto and Unohana. Xyle Aparo explicitly stated that they are already in Hell. How would Shunsui fare having to face off against his father figure Yamamoto, who is now corrupted and empowered by Hell? Imagine Kinpachi fighting a Hell corrupted Unohana, except this time she's not there to unlock his potential, she's there to kill him. The psychological warfare aspect is devastating before you even factor in combat capability. These Hell-empowered former captains might surpass their living versions. Xyle Aparo, as an example, went from Espada level to being able to hold his own against a Hell Arc Renji. This is him after having achieved his true Bankai following the events of the 1000-year Blood War arc. So the question becomes, can 5 truly powerful captains with 3 decent mid-tier captains and 2 wild cards with Shinji and Rukia and 3 complete unknowns handle waves of corrupted captains and former opponents that they have sent to Hell? Here's the uncomfortable truth. On paper, yes, the Hell Arc Gotei 13 may be the weakest in terms of overall roster strength. They've lost Yamamoto, Unohana, Ukitake, and even Komamura. Among these captains, 3 of them were the most powerful and experienced captains in the history of the Gotei 13. The lineup has been replaced with Iba, Isane, and Lisa, who combined don't come close to matching what was was lost. The top 5 captains in this iteration are individually stronger than almost any captain from previous generations. Kinpachi alone is a walking apocalypse. The Royal Guard training fundamentally changed Byakuya, and Hitsugaya with his adult form is truly on another level. Shunsui and Mayuri have hacks that can overcome raw power differences, and the problem is depth. Previous Gotei 13 iterations had strength distributed throughout the roster. Soul Society arc had Isane, Yamamoto, Shunsui, Unohana, Ukitake, Gin, and Byakuya. All of these captains were genuine threats. The current version is top heavy. Take out the big 5 captains and suddenly you're relying on captains who get embarrassed in the 1000 Year Blood War arc, or captains who have demonstrated 0 feats. Against a ordinary threat, I think this Gotei 13 is going to be fine. But what happens when this Hell Arc Gotei 13 is forced to face off against the Hell Arc threats, like the original Gotei 13 captains, the 3 captains who were recently sent to Hell, or returning villains who have now been empowered by the forces of Hell? These could include Gin and Tozen. It's hard to deny that in terms of overall combat ability, the Hell Arc Gotei 13 is the weakest. But in terms of peak individual captain strength in those top tiers, there's more than enough to account for some of the weaker areas of the lineup. Now we're going to have to see whether this is enough, and it depends entirely on how Kubo structures the conflicts of the Hell Arc. This does raise a bit of a meta question. Is Kubo intentionally setting up the Gotei 13 to appear weak, only for him to then reveal a lot of aces up his sleeve when the Hell Arc kicks off? The 10-year time skip after Yuobak's defeat and then the additional 2 years to the Hell one-shot chapter is suspicious. Kubo doesn't do things randomly. Iba, Isane, and Lisa have had over a decade to train and develop. And this is alongside other captains like Byakuya, Hitsugaya, Kinpachi, and Rukia, who demonstrated new abilities in the 1000 Year Blood War arc, which have had more than enough time to be refined and developed. Maybe in those 12 years, Isane's achieved Bankai. Maybe Lisa's grown exponentially stronger as a Vizard captain. If we're strictly being optimistic, I think Kubo is saving the reveals of Iba, Isane, and Lisa for when it truly matters. We'll most likely get them struggling against the forces of Hell, only for them to then unveil their new techniques. And Kubo often uses this method of storytelling where he sets up an underdog and lets them prove the doubters wrong. And if you want to be pessimistic, then Lisa, Iba, and Isane will get sidelined immediately when real threats show up, leaving the really powerful captains to do most of the heavy lifting. And this also is realistic storytelling, because not everyone needs to be combat focused or super powerful. There are different roles within the Gotei 13 that need to be fulfilled by different captains. Not everyone can be on the level of Shunsui and Kinpachi. So we've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about the Hell Arc Gotei 13 lineup? Have all of the captains really earned their positions within the Gotei 13? If you ask me, I think Kinpachi, Byakuya, Hitsugaya, Shunsui, Mayuri, and Rukia are all worthy without question. They've earned their spots through their demonstrated power feats and actual accomplishments. I think Shinji gets the benefit of the doubt purely from his history and his Vizard abilities, even if the 1000 Year Blood War arc had done him dirty. But as for the others, I think there's a big question mark on them. But yeah, do continue the discussion in the comments. I'd love to know all of your thoughts. If there is anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.